Today, students, it's a beautiful day. It's another beautiful day. You're welcome once again to the English language tutorial class. Today, we're going to look at what is called Concord in grammar. Concord in grammar. This is an essential topic in English language, and I will implore each and every one of us to pay attention so that we'll be able to gain from this. We can easily correct ourselves instead of allowing the examiner to correct us by putting rings and underlining, deducting our scores under mechanical accuracy and penalizing us in the expression unnecessarily. All this can be avoided. So, we're going to look at Concord today. Good morning. I remain yours truly, Adenuga AOS. Concord. Concord in English means agreement, and it relates to the form in which all the parts of a sentence agree with one another. Remember that we have said that a sentence is made up of different parts, different phrases, phrase structures, and perhaps at times different clause structures. Agreement is usually expressed in terms of rules which govern the relationship of various parts of a sentence with one another. Here is an example. Agreement is indicated in the way the subject of a sentence agrees in number with the verb. For example, the woman swims across the river. The woman swims across the river. The verb is indicated in bold print. The woman is the subject and it is singular. So the verb must reflect the singularity of the subject. And the other example, the women swim across the river. The women swim across the river. Here, the women is plural in number, and so it must be reflected in the verb swim. Agreement can also be indicated in the way a pronoun agrees in person and number with its antecedent noun or noun phrase. I repeat, agreement can also be indicated in the way a pronoun agrees in the person and number with its antecedent noun or noun phrase. Example, the girl goes home next week because she is ill. The girl goes home next week because she is ill. If you check carefully, the underlined noun is girl, feminine. And so the pronoun must reflect the feminine gender of that particular subject. The other example is the boys go home next week because they are weak. In the first example, apart from being feminine, girl, it's also singular. So the pronoun she, feminine pronoun, and singular must be used. While in the second example, the boys indicate the plurality of the subject and masculine. And so here, because there's no plurality for the masculine gender, it's going to be plural pronoun that will be used, they, for the boys to show that it's plural. And again, agreement is also indicated in the way determiners such as articles, demonstrators, qualifiers, and the others agree in number with their head nouns. A boy, those boys. A boy, those boys. So if you say a boy, the determiner here, the article a shows singularity, those will show plurality. And so if you have a, you can say a boys, and you will not say those boy. It will be wrong, and you will lose your score. Again, we have this man, that man, these men. This man, that man, these men. This and that will show us the singularity of the subject. And so the plurality of the pronoun these will be used for men, which show which shows plurality. So we have to note this. However, let me just put this across to us that maybe we are looking at some strange words. Probably we have forgotten. We're looking at person, we're looking at number. In English language, we need to understand this. When we talk of person in English, we are talking of the first person, the second person, and the third person. Persons in English refers to whosoever we can regard as human beings that are involved in a conversation or an expression or statement. The first person, I have stated it in one of my presentations, the first person is the speaker. Whosoever is doing the talking at that moment is the first person. So when we refer to the first person, we're referring to the person who is talking. And so for such a person, the pronoun that will go for that person will be I, me for subject, for object, me, and my. So for the person that will refer as the second person is the person that is listening, the person you're talking to, your audience, whether singular or plural. So we refer to that person as second person. So it is referred to as you in the use of the pronoun, you, whether singular or plural. And then for the third person, we're talking about the subject of discussion, the person you're talking about, not talking to, the person you're talking about, or the thing that you're talking about. So the thing that you're talking about, any of this, that is the subject matter of a discussion between the two of you, between the first person and the second person, is referred to as the third person in grammar. And number refers to either singular or plural form of whatsoever you're doing at that time. So please, let's note this as the background to our tutorial today. So let us start with the subject-verb agreement, which is the most essential of the three that we're going to look at. There are others. We have shift and construction and some other things, but I'm not going to bother you with a lot of shit until you get to maybe the tertiary institution, and if need be, we will let you get to understand some of these things to assist you in your written composition. So today, let's look at subject-verb agreement as we go along. The subject of a verb is usually a noun, a pronoun, or a noun phrase. I repeat, the subject of a verb is usually a noun, a pronoun, or a noun phrase. I keep telling students that you can basically divide any sentence whatsoever into two broad parts, the subject and the predicate. The predicate is that part which begins with the verb. You pick the verb, the main verb of that sentence, to the right, to the end of the sentence. That will form your predicate. But whatsoever you have before the verb, that is to the left, from the capital letter, the beginning of the sentence, whatsoever you have to the left will constitute your subject. And that is what the verb is talking about. So, in all acceptable sentences, the subject agrees with its verb in number. That is whether singular or plural. This means that when the subject of a sentence is singular, the verb must be singular. Here is an example. My sister walks to school every day. My sister walks to school every day. My sister is a singular subject, noun phrase that is singular. And so the verb walks must indicate the singularity of the subject, which is my sister. And so you have the sentence, my sister walks to school every day. On the other hand, when the subject is plural, then the plural form of the verb must be used in agreement with the subject. For example, university students believe in democracy. University students believe in democracy. You have used students, which is plural now. University students. So the verb believe must indicate the plurality form of the subject. Another example, they are quite serious. They are quite serious. They are quite serious. So they is plural. The pronoun plural standing in the place of the subject. And so her, which is a verb to be, verb be, must indicate the plurality of the subject, which is a pronoun they. So it's important that we understand that the number indicates either singular or plural of the singular or plural form of the subject. And so it must be reflected in the verb. If you fail to do that, you will lose score. Now listen very carefully. The subject-verb agreement can be applied in a number of ways. The subject-verb agreement can be applied in a number of ways. 1. A double or multiple subject takes plural verb. That is, when you have a compound subject, a subject that you have joined with the use of a conjunction. Example, he and I are classmates. He, the third person singular, and the I, first person singular, together will now form the subject of the sentence, and so it becomes plural, multiple subject. It must take the plural form of the verb. He and I are classmates. Fine acting and elaborate scenery are characteristics of our high school drama or play. My father and all the family, my father and all the family go to the theater every week. My father and all the family go to the theater every week. Please note, however, sometimes the parts of the double or compound subject are so closely connected so as to express only one idea. You have to be very careful. This calls for a singular verb. I repeat, at times, depending on the style of the writer and what the writer is trying to pass across, the parts of the double or compound subject, they are so closely knitted, closely connected, and they now give you the idea of singularity. For example, in most cases, they ask you, tell us your best food. You tell us rice and beans. So you see, rice plus beans together are so closely connected, even though I am of the opinion, which I normally tell people, that you don't take rice and beans, you take rice with beans, because you don't take them in the same quantity, and neither are you taking them in different plates. So you take rice with beans. That's what you do. Or you take beans with plantain. You don't take beans and plantain. However, this is English, and language is dynamic. So rice and beans is her favorite food. Rice and beans is a favorite food. That is what is meant by rice. What is meant is rice with beans. So what we're saying is rice and beans together here indicates the notion is that of singularity, one food item. One food item. And so you will not say because it's joined by and it becomes multiple, and you not say rice and beans are my best food. No, you don't do that. Because the notion here is that of singularity, you have to indicate it with singular verb. Again, bread and butter is all you need for a quick breakfast. Just as I said earlier, you don't take bread and butter in the real sense. What you take is bread with butter. So in that sense, you now don't look at bread and butter as multiple subjects. Rather, you take them as singular, one food item, one type of food. So it becomes bread and butter is all you need for a quick breakfast. When the subject consists of two or more singular words separated by either or, neither, nor, the verb is singular. For example, neither Rosemary nor Blessing loves the man. Neither Rosemary nor Blessing loves the man. Either Queen or Vivian takes the money. Either Queen or Vivian takes the money. Here, if you look at the subject, you realize that Rosemary is singular, Blessing is singular, but separated here by the use of neither and nor. And the other one, Queen and Vivian, separated by either or. Please note that when you use either or, you're telling us that there must be a choice. One choice, one option must be taken. But when you use neither nor, it's negation. Neither of the options must be taken. Neither will be taken. So it means that you will not take any of the options given when you use neither nor. But you don't use either nor, and you don't use neither or. So you have to be very careful. There are times people will use neither or no, no, or neither nor, then they begin to use or. So you have to be very careful because we are looking at Concord grammar, Concord in grammar. So please, it's important. When the subject consists of two or more singular words separated by either or, neither nor, the verb is singular. However, when the subject consists of two or more nouns or pronouns of different persons separated by either or, neither nor, the verb agrees in person with a subject noun or pronoun that is nearest to it. This is called proximity concord. In proximity concord, we have different persons or numbers of the subject, that is either nouns or pronouns. When we talk of persons, I have explained to us that we have the first person, the second person, the third person. In English, we have first person singular, we have first person plural, we have first person, second person singular, we have second person plural. Likewise, we have third person singular and third person plural. So when we talk of first person, we're talking of I singular, we plural, second person you singular or plural, third person singular he, she, or it, and then plural they. So it's important you must understand this. And when we talk of plural form, so it's either the singular or the plural form. So you have to know this. So what we're now saying in essence is that where the subject is made up of different nouns or pronouns indicating different persons or different numbers, then the noun or pronoun that stands closest to the verb will determine the form of the verb. Example, neither you, Dele, nor I am wrong. Neither you, Dele, nor I am wrong. If you look at the subject here, we have you, which is second person singular, Dele, which is third person singular, I, which is the first person singular. So, in essence, when we look at the three, we have to check which one is closest to the verb, and that determines the form of the verb. And that is why you now have I am wrong. You cannot say you, neither you, Dele, nor I is wrong, or neither you, Dele, nor I are wrong, because you have used you. It will be grammatically incorrect. So we have to check when we are making use of our own. If you have any question, I will attend to your question. Please, you may post your question straight away. Okay, either you or Dele is wrong. Either you or Dele is wrong. Is correct here because Dele is a third person singular, and it is closer to the verb than you, which is second person. And so, Dele will now dictate the form of the verb. The general rule that covers 2 and 3 above is that when we use the correlative conjunction, either or, neither, nor, and not only, also, the noun following the second conjunction determines the verb form. The noun following the second conjunction, that is, when you say neither, you use or. So the noun that follows or will determine, or the pronoun that follows will determine okay? And if you use neither, you will use nor. Am I communicating now? Okay. So the pronoun or noun that comes after nor will determine the verb. I hope I'm well understood. Please try it, and if you still have any challenge, let me know, or just give me your feedback so that we can look at it together. When the subject consists of noun phrases or nouns joined by the correlative conjunction both or and, both and, the subject is always plural. Reason being that you have used both to indicate plurality, more than one. So the subject will be plural, And so the verb that is indicated in that expression must be plural in form. Example, both the vice chancellor and his deputy are around. You have linked the vice chancellor and the deputy together by using the word both and then joining together by the conjunction and. So when I have both the vice chancellor and the deputy are around. A singular subject with connectives like along with, as well as accompanied by, all these ones must take singular verb. When you use a singular subject, you want to have so many people coming, and then you have a singular subject just picking one of them, the head, and then you now put alongside all the others by using the word along, alongside, with, as well as, and accompanied by, and the others. Then the verb must show singularity to indicate the fact that you have picked only one particular head. Example here, the president, along with his ministers, has arrived. The person who has arrived is the president, not his ministers. But the president is here with the ministers, in company of the ministers. So what you're telling us is not that the ministers are here, but that the president is here. And once the president is here, it's believed, and that's, well, by assumption, that he will not come alone. So you're not telling us extra piece of information that the president is not alone, but his ministers are within. So you now say the president, along with his ministers, has arrived. So the bone of contention here, the focus here is the president. And president being singular, the verb must indicate singularity. Indefinite pronouns, such as anything, everything, everybody, each, everyone, anyone, anybody, somebody, someone, and so on, all must take singular verb. Example, everybody here is a gentleman. Everybody here is a gentleman. Everybody here is a gentleman. A parade of large ships is being erected. A parade of large ships is erected. Remember that I just said A. We have spoken about determinants before. So the determinant here, which is an article A, is the one that is important. You're not talking of the ships. You're talking of a parade. So when I'm looking at it, don't be confused and don't allow the noun near the verb to inflect. That is to change the form of the verb, if that noun is not in fact the subject of the verb. Because ships is not the subject of the verb, a parade is the subject of the verb. And in the case above, a parade, not ships, is the subject. And that is why the verb must be is, that is being erected. Again, here is another example. The language group is now assembled. The language group is now assembled. The language group I was with in 1997 are now scattered all over the country. I'm using the language group in the two sentences. So please check carefully. The first one is the language group is now assembled. The second sentence is the language group I was with in 1997 are now scattered all over the country. And the first sentence, group is a normal collective noun and is thus treated as singular. You know, remember the types of nouns that we have. We have collective noun, we have abstract noun, common noun, and proper noun, and the others. So when you look at the collective noun, you treat it as one, even though you have so many members into it. But there are occasions when we talk of notional sentences. So when the notion is that of singularity, you treat it as singular. When the notion, that is the idea, is that of plurality, you treat it as plural. In the second sentence, the language group I was with in 1997 and are scattered all over the country. The total meaning impels us to treat group as plural. We are talking about the separate components of the group, that they are scattered. So you should please note this as well. When one is at home, one is able to speak one's mind. When one is at home, one is able to speak one's mind. When one is at home, you are able to speak your mind. When one is at home, you are able to speak your mind. So you must please indicate what you are saying and get it carefully. Actually, in the first sentence, when one is at home, one is able to speak one's mind. Check carefully. When one is at home, is not part and should not indicate the verb in the main clause, because here we have two clause structures, and so you should be very careful. I have told you, depending on the writer's style, it can be confusing at times, and so you have to be very careful when you're looking at what has been given to you. When one is at home is actually an adverbial clause of time. So it has nothing to do on the main clause now, except that it is giving you more information, modifying the verb speak, is able. So, but the main clause here is one is able to speak one's mind. Don't forget the verb, the pronoun must be reflected well to show the antecedent. So now one is able to speak one's mind. In the second sentence, you. Now that is why the other verb is your mind. Okay, please note, pronoun must agree to be consistent within a sentence. It's important. That is pronoun, antecedent, noun, concord. In summary, the most common grammatical errors that mar efforts in effective writing come from Concord. Mistakes in agreement concern inconsistency in the use of one number when you are not consistent in whether singular or plural, as it involves subject and verb of a sentence, and two, pronoun and its antecedent noun. You use plural for singular, you use singular for plural, and it's important. Then two, in person, in terms of whether you're using first person for second person or second person for third person and so on, when you use the pronoun and it's at this antecedent noun. You start with a first person, you end it with a third person, and or shifts from one person to another when you have forgotten yourself. So that's why you must be in good control of your sentences. And three, gender, as it relates to pronoun and its antecedent noun. We use the masculine for the feminine, you use the feminine for the masculine, and the tense, the present for the past, past for present, and so on, as it involves shifts from one tense to another. And lastly, voice, whether active or passive, as it applies to shifts from active voice to passive voice. We have to be very careful and take all this, and these are what we have looked at today. I'm going to quickly summarize this lesson today. I will not summarize what we have gone through. The three rules of Concord are: one, subject-verb agreement. There's a Concord concerning subject-verb in a sentence. Two, pronoun and its antecedent noun, agreement between them. And three, shifts in construction. That is a sudden change from one number or to another number, from one person to another person, from one tense to another tense, from one voice to another voice. So basically, what we have learned today is subject-verb agreement. When the subject is singular, S1, the verb must be singular, V1. When the subject is plural, represented by S2, then the verb must also be plural, represented by V2. And when the subject, singular subjects, are joined together by conjunction and, then it becomes plural. The verb must show plurality. S1 and S1, the verb must be V2, plural. And when the subject is plural in its own form, joined by and a conjunction, that is, you have a plural verb, they and their dog. So it's still plural. So you join them together, it becomes plural. The verb must show plurality. There's an exception to rule number 3, that is S1 and S1V2. When and is replaced, that is what we have learned in proximity, by words such as, what we have learned there, when we're using when we're using adverbs. With such words as when you replace the and as the conjunction with words such as with, as well as together with, along with, alongside, accompanied by, and so on, the verb becomes singular in nature. Please refer back to the lessons that we have learned in the previous slides. When compound subject, when compound subject gives the impression of a unit, the notion that we have spoken of, example, law and order, rule and regulation, bread and cheese, rice and beans, then the verb is singular. Notion, idea, please. When a compound subject is connected with correlatives, the singular verb is used. For example, neither the teacher nor the student is there. Please remember what we have said in essence is that the pronoun or the noun that is coming after the second conjunction, nor or but only, will determine the verb form that we're going to use in that sentence. So when the compound subject differ in number, the verb agrees in number with the nearer noun, proximity. Okay. Collective noun takes singular or plural verb depending on the notion. That's what we have expressed. For example, the choir is singing, the government has sponsored new bills, a new government was formed yesterday, the team are quarreling, the staff are waiting for the principal, the crew are busy serving the passengers. So you have to note where it is important. Collective noun followed by of and plural noun. Most of them are followed by use of, that is one of the boys, and so on. Takes singular verb. For example, a team of athletes has presented prizes. You're talking of a team. You're not talking of athletes. You're talking of a team. So please, forget about the of athletes. That is the plural form followed by of. Following of is not the bone of contention. The bone of contention is what comes before of. So you have to note that. One of plus a plural noun takes singular verb. For example, one of the boys is round. Indefinite pronouns, each, every, everybody, anybody, anyone, everyone, and so on, also take singular verb. Please note, when auxiliary verb precedes a main verb, the auxiliary takes the singular form of the verb. When you use the auxiliary form of the verb, and then after you use the main verb, the auxiliary verb must take the singular form. Thank you.